Morning, everybody. How you doing today? Thanks for joining the show again. We're going to continue with the cybersecurity basics series, which is actually coming to a temporary pause or an end because I think we've covered a lot of the basics so far, which is great. If you have another topic you want me to hit up in the basics line, just talk to me online at marknca on most social, down in the comments below in the vlog, and as always by email, me at markn.ca for the podcast listeners. So today I want to talk about something that applies to both personal, so individuals, as well as people in cybersecurity or in IT in general. And this is a concept of bolt-on versus built-in security. So these are not official terms, but you see them used relatively often, and they refer to a couple design, let's say, choices, to be generous, because it's Friday and we want to be nice to people. So a lot of security products that you're using are going to be bolt-on. And that essentially means exactly what it sounds like, is that they are not part of the original thing that you are protecting. So you have a system and you've added something additionally on top of it. I'm trying to think of a real world physical analogy. It's kind of tricky, but I'll give you the contrast to give you a better idea. So let's say, actually I'll give you, here we go. Just came to me. I was thinking about sports ball. As you can see, for those of you on the vlog, on my shirt, I've got my great sports ball shirt on. So a bike, normal bicycle, has a number of security features that we'll tackle in a second. But there is one bolt-on after the fact, is your helmet. Your bike helmet is a bolt-on. There is nothing on the bike inherently to protect the rider's head, so we have created a new product called the bicycle helmet that you will then put on your head, and that is a bolt-on security control, right? So that's a bolt-on feature or some action that we're using to protect. Okay, so that's a security, that's bolt-on security. The contrast, the flip side of that is built-in security. So built into the bike for security is the braking system. The braking system is built in to slow the bike down to increase safety and security, right? So that's a real-world analogy. Bolt-on, the helmet, built in the brakes. So you think about this in the cyber world. So if we look at something like, let's say, Windows 10, which I was using last night, and I could not believe it. It's been a long time since I've used Windows for an extended period of time, and I was kind of shocked at a bunch of things. That's another blog, I'm sure, and rant to be determined. So for Windows, there's a number of security features that are built in. So your account, that's a built-in feature. There's something called UAC, or user access control, and that's the prompt you get when you're trying to install software, or the software that you're running is trying to take an additional action, and the screen kind of fades out, and it pops up and says, hey, this installer needs additional permissions, yes or no, confirm or deny, that kind of thing. That's elevating your privilege. That's a built-in security control. It says you as a normal user aren't allowed to do these things unless you have specific extra permission to do it, user access control, and that is built-in security. Bolt-on would be anti-malware. So anti-malware software stops bad things from running, right? Malware is, as we know from earlier in the series, is software with malicious intent or something you're just not intending to do in your system. So anti-malware stops that type of software from running. And that's bolt-on, because if it was built in, we wouldn't need it, right? It would just be better operating system design. So in this case, bolt-on controls are augmenting the built-in design in order to do things better. But the challenge you get is that it's always better. It's 100% better, undeniably, to be built in than bolt-on. I say that working in the security industry for a vendor who sells bolt-on products. The reason why I can say that with a straight face, I think I had a straight face, is that if we could build better secure by default, privacy by default enabled products, we wouldn't have all these additional security controls after the fact. We would have maybe verification and assurance and things like that that are different. But the reality is people make mistakes. These systems are super complicated, and bolt-on controls give you a third party or an external view to make sure. So the argument is pretty straightforward, is that if somebody built a product that has security vulnerabilities, hopefully they fix that and reduce that, and everybody does this. It's just human nature. We make mistakes, you move quickly, things break, or unintended consequences of complex systems. There's a whole theory of computer science down there. So mistakes happen, and bolt-on security controls can help mitigate the risks by those mistakes, and provide additional controls that weren't necessarily possible, or they can help solve multi-product problems. So if you think about malware and anti-malware controls, on whatever system you're defending, obviously there was an issue where malware could run. So having a third party that is monitoring for malware is a smart move, right? Because you've got the assurance that it's a third party. It's not the original people who had the oversight or made the mistake that created the vulnerability that malware can take advantage of. It's a third party that hopefully you trust who's doing that. So that's bolt-on, and that makes sense. However, for some basic security controls, built-in is where you want to be. And in general, built-in, we want as many built-in as possible, because that'll reduce the load of a bolt-on control. Because a bolt-on control by nature is external, right? It's something outside of the product that you're actually trying to protect, or the system you're trying to protect. So there's a cost there. Sometimes it's actual financial cost you're outlaying. Sometimes it's what we call operational cost, or just the amount of effort it takes to run that. So you need to make sure it's up to date. You need to make sure it's on and active. You need to make sure that it's patched and up to date, because there could be problems, security problems with it. So there's what we call that actual outlay cost, and then there's operational burden or operational cost. So anytime you bolt on, you're dealing with that as well. So you want to make sure that when you are adding a bolt-on control, that it is worth the trade-off. And for anti-malware, obviously, it very much is. But then there's a whole host of other security controls that you're going to hear about that may or may not be worth it, depending on the situation that you're in. So that's built-in versus bolt-on. By default, built-in is absolutely where we want to focus the vast majority of our efforts when we're building systems. But because we as consumers, or we as businesses who have bought things, you can't affect directly how that thing was built. So that's why we have bolt-on. We add on bolted-on controls and security protections to make sure that the mistakes, which are inevitable, they're going to happen, are covered, and that we're not put at unnecessary risk. What do you think? Let me know your thoughts on bolt-on versus built-in. Hit me up online at marknca. For those of you on the vlogs, in the comments down below. And as always, by email, me at markn.ca. I very much appreciate you guys watching the show, following along. All the comments I try to get to, I read at the very least. I try to reply to everybody, because this is what drives the show. I hope you're set up for a fantastic Friday and a great weekend. And I will talk to you on the show on Monday and online today. Take care.